Learn 10 Copic coloring tips in 10 minutes today. Hi, I'm Amber from Notable Ink. Be sure to like and subscribe down below and follow the blog link for a chance to win a gift card. Let's take a closer look at the Altenew Paint-A-Flower Clematis Stamp Set. Now this is a really clever design because you can link the open-ended areas of the lattice work that you see on the left-hand side of the stamp to create a larger image like what you see on the right-hand side of the trifold. So the trifold, of course, as always, gives you lots of inspiration in how to set up your images and color your images. I like the minimal colors that they used here, but I wanted to use all 6 color families. I'm going to go ahead and start by stamping this with Altenew Permanent Black ink. This is a Copic or alcohol marker safe ink. Now, one trick that I like to use is I'll stamp this in a MISTI, whether you use a mini MISTI like this or your original size MISTI or other stamp positioner. Leave your stamp in the stamp positioner, and then once you're done coloring, come back and stamp the image again with a pigment ink, and that'll give you crisp, clear lines. Now here I'm just going to go ahead and heat set my ink because inevitably I never let this kind of ink dry long enough and I end up smearing it with my markers. So I'll go ahead and heat set that so I can prevent any smearing. Here are the brand new Altenew Artist Markers. So this is set F and G, and we have Sunshine Valley and Water Garden set. These colors, of course, coordinate with Altenew's Crisp Dye ink stamp sets as well. I'm going to start off with Cherry Blossom Artist Markers, and of course there's 4 colors. I have them set up on my craft mat from dark to light, and these are small flowers. So when I'm coloring a small space, I typically color from dark to light. So I'll start with my darkest shadow color and then move out to the lightest color, and then I'll add in the colors as needed to create more depth of shadow. Now, if I was coloring a larger image, so let's say that this one flower was the size of this whole stamp, then I might color from light to dark because I want to have enough ink on that large of a space to make sure that I get good blending. Coloring from dark to light in small images will help prevent any bleeding outside of the edges because you're not going to overfill the space with your lighter color and then go all the way to your dark and then back out to your light again. That's just the experience that I've had. So I rarely ever see bleeding outside of the lines when I go from dark to light. I'm doing some really simple coloring here and not really paying too much attention to the quality of my strokes. Because again, it's a small space. You can only get so much detail in these small spaces. So I'm just trying to blend these together. They're not going to be perfect blends, and I'm not too worked up about that. I just want the colors to kind of transition from one to the other. This is the Enchanted Garden color family that I'm using here now, and I'm going to do purple and pink flowers for these clematis. Now these purples are much darker than the pinks, so you probably could get away with just using 3 of the colors instead of all 4 of them, so that you leave a little bit more of the highlight left in these petals. But you will see as the ink starts to dry, these flowers lighten up a little bit, these purple flowers. But feel free to use 3 of the markers instead of all 4 if you like. For the leaves, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the darkest color of the green on all of the leaves and then come back in and start blending. Now, I can do this because I'm coloring on a glass mat. When you color with alcohol markers on a glass mat, the glass is non-porous, and so the ink stays wet a little bit longer. It doesn't evaporate quite as fast. If you, let's say, were working on a paper mat was underneath your piece of cardstock, or maybe another piece of paper or something like that. If you have something absorbent underneath your cardstock, your inks are going to dry faster, which gives you less time to blend. So if you find that you're struggling with blending your colors, try coloring on a glass mat or a non-porous surface and see if that helps you out. For the wood lattice here, I decided to go with the browns. Traditionally, I would do these in a white color, but again, I really wanted to use all of the colors of the markers that we had here in the new set. So This is the Delectable Delights color family, and I'm just doing some quick blending here. I'm making sure that I have my darkest colors where the flowers are going to cast a shadow, and just working up those shadows here. I'm making sure to flick out towards the ends. Now, the stamp image just ends. Of course, it doesn't take the full size of the card, and I was thinking that I was going to leave it like this. I do end up trimming this card panel down, though. I decided to add blue background to this, so this is the Sweet Dreams color family, and I'm using the lightest color, which is Dewdrops here. I'm using the bullet tip nib here because some of those spaces in between the flowers and the lattice are pretty small. Here I'm just outlining the lattice, and now I'm going to use the brush tip and just flick outwards so that I have kind of more of an organic edge to this, so it just doesn't end abruptly. So here again, at this point, I was thinking that I was going to leave the image on the card like this, but ultimately I end up cutting it down. And so having this soft edge isn't really too much of a factor in this card, but I did want to leave this footage in here in case this was something that you wanted to do. So here I've trimmed the card down, and it looks nice. I like the coloring, but I feel like it's missing a little bit of shadow, and it also needs a pop of white. So here I have a white Posca pen, which is like a paint pen. This is the 0.7 millimeter pen. It's a very fine tip. You need to press down on the tip to get the ink to come down to the nib. This is my first time using it. And then I'm just dotting in the stamens, and this is going to add a little bit of a pop of white back to the card. Here I decided I needed to have the yellow. That was the only color family I hadn't used yet, so I picked out one of the yellows and I'm adding that to the tips. And I colored that a couple times to build up the color, which kind of pushes the green away and gives it that yellow hue, which makes the leaves a little more dynamic. Now this looks really nice, but I feel like it's missing some depth. It still looks really flat to me. So I decided to add my secret weapon, which is shading with a pencil and a tortillon, which is going to help this image pop off the page. And a little after I'm done with the shading, I'm going to show you a side-by-side image so that you can see the difference between without shading and with. So when this is just a number 2 pencil that I'm using, and with the tortillon or the paper stump, if you hold the pencil and the tortillon a little more parallel to your glass mat here, it's a little bit parallel, but you could get it even more parallel, then you're going to use the side of the pencil instead of the tip. That's going to give you a smoother blend. You want to make sure that you're not using a lot of pressure with your pencil, because that's just going to cause you to smash the texture of the paper down. Now this is Nina Classic Crust Solar Weight 80 pound that I've colored on, and it is not my favorite to shade with because it's so smooth. There's not a lot for the graphite of the pencil to grab onto. I prefer to shade like this on paper that has just a little bit more texture, but it'll do in a pinch, and I think that the shading adds so much more impact to this card and really helps the image pop off the page that it's worth this little bit of extra effort. So I'm trying to get in underneath the leaves, underneath some of the flowers and leaves to separate those from each other. Basically anywhere there's going to be a casted shadow, I want to add a little bit of graphite. So I've left most, if not all, of the shading in here so you can see where I went. Now, I will warn you though, once you start shading like this, it is kind of hard to stop. You want to add it everywhere because it just adds such a big difference. One of the things that you want to be careful of is making sure that you keep your shading close to the edge that you're shading. If you bring it out too far into those teal areas, into those like what almost look like little windows now, your project is just going to look overall dirty instead of popping it off the page. Like right now, it's starting to get that little bit of an antique-y feel. So here you can see the difference with on the left, no shading at all. On the right, we have the pencil shading. I love this look. I think it adds more drama to the piece and has that little bit of antique-y feel to it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tip. For some of you, you may have seen it with my videos before. If you're new to my channel, I hope that you enjoyed it. If you learned something new in today's video, please give me a like and consider subscribing down below. As always, supplies are linked down below as well. And make sure to follow along with the blog hop and leave comments on the blog post for a chance to win a gift card to shop Altenew. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you soon with more inspiration.